Mass is held at the Armenian Orthodox Church in Damascus, marking Christmas according to the Eastern calendar. And Israeli forces of occupation continue their arbitrary policy in the villages of occupied Golan, setting up more military checkpoints at the entrances. And the Iraqi Prime Minister calls for expulsion of the terrorists from Fallujah as Iraqis call for suing Saudi regime for supporting terrorism. Good afternoon, this is news in English from the Syrian Army television in Damascus. A mass is held on Monday at Sarkis Church for Armenian Orthodox of Damascus Parish to mark Christmas following the Eastern calendar. Archbishop Nalbandian called for peace and stability in Syria when he conducted the mass. He also called for all Syrians to unite firmly and to be armed with love and tolerance in face of terrorism. Archbishop Nalbandian reminded the worshippers that Syria has always stood by their side during the hard times, calling on them to show their national feelings and to stand firmly in face of its enemies.
ينعاد هذا العيد الأعجوبة وبهذه المناسبة.
As part of the arbitrary policy followed by the Israeli occupation in the villages and towns of the occupied Syrian Golan, and with the aim of multiplying attempts to isolate the areas and to separate the villages there from each other, the Israeli forces of occupation set up a number of military checkpoints and barricades at the entrances of the occupied towns and villages. Also, as part of its racist policies, the Israeli occupation declared the devastated village of Jabbat al-Zayt, west of occupied Majd al-Shams, as a closed military zone. Prime Minister al-Halaqi underlined the government's willingness to boost bilateral cooperation with South Africa in the economic domain to increase the bulk of trade exchange between the two countries. During his meeting with the South African ambassador to Damascus, Sean Benvildet, Prime Minister al-Halaqi voiced the government's willingness to boost prospects of bilateral cooperation and to benefit from the excellent experience of South Africa in achieving considerable economic growth and in the localization of investment. Al-Halaqi said that the growing role of the BRICS countries to become key economic and political players in the international arena has led to the formation of a new axis in the face of tyranny, colonialism and hegemony, leading to achieve a strategic balance in the international affairs. Al-Halaqi also asserted that the Syrian government is determined to fight terrorism and to restore security and stability to every inch of the Syrian territories. 4 million school students yesterday took the first term exams all over the country, giving the whole world a clear message saying that the children of Syria are more powerful than the fires of terrorism and Takfiri mentality.
Taking the exams at the scheduled time set by the Ministry of Education is a new proof of the failure by the terrorists to undermine the Syrian students' will. The students' determination to continue their education has been fostered by the measures taken by the Ministry in cooperation with other bodies concerned and the students' families to guarantee the continuation of the educational process. Among these measures were applying part-time class attendance to cope with the shortage in the number of schools, as some have been targeted by terrorists, while others have been turned into temporary sheltering centers for displaced families. Efforts also included providing all educational process requirements and teaching and administrative staff. During a tour to a number of examination centers in the city of Damascus, Education Minister Hazwan Al-Wiz stressed the ministry's keenness to provide students with good and comfortable atmosphere to enable them achieve the required results. Al-Wiz announced that the Russian language will be taught at schools starting at the 7th grade, where students will have to choose between the French and Russian as a second foreign language beside English.
The Ministry of Health yesterday launched the second national vaccination campaign against polio that targets 2.2 million children under 5.
Health Minister Saad Al-Naif stressed that all health centers area prepared and ready to receive children and that vaccines are available in all the provinces. He added that the 5-day vaccination campaign, just like other previous or coming campaigns, is carried out in cooperation with civil society associations to ensure access to all areas. The immunization campaigns inside Syria have coincided with several similar campaigns in neighboring countries through medical centers on the crossing borders to ensure that all targeted children are reached. Rodolphe Tangram of Polio Program at the World Health Organization hailed the Health Ministry's preparations for the vaccination campaigns and the great turnout to the health centers, stressing that the ministry is doing a great job. He noted that the current campaign is going in the right direction in terms of both preparation and implementation. The campaign targets 750,000 children in Aleppo, 47,000 in Suwaida, 328,000 in Hama, 108,000 in Daraa, 141,000 in Homs, and 241,000 in Hasaka. Those include children at schools and makeshift residential centers who can have access to vaccines through the health centers and medical workers and volunteers, in addition to mobile teams and the Syrian Arab Red Crescent teams, so as to reach children in inaccessible areas. The Ministry of Health has set a plan to carry out 6 nationwide vaccination campaigns against polio after a number of polio cases have been detected in Syria.
Syrian Army destroyed several terrorist hideouts in Latakia countryside and in Daraa and its countryside, killing many terrorists and injuring others. A military source said that the Syrian Army fought an infiltration attempt by a terrorist group into the area of Qast al-Ma'af in the northern countryside of Latakia, killing many terrorists and injuring others. Among the terrorists killed, there were the Turkish Bakir Othman, Bisar Shawish and Nuruddin Oglan, in addition to Fahmi Mualla Musa. Also, the Syrian Army units killed a number of terrorist leaders, destroying their weapons and ammunition which were hidden in their hideouts in the towns of Ataman and Al-Hirakim and in the neighborhood of Al-Karak and Assad in Dar al-Balad. Also in the area of Al-Ba'ajin in Deir Zor, Syrian Army units restored security and stability as the workshops from the Governorate's Services Directorate started their work of maintenance and rehabilitation at the time when residents started to return to their houses and properties. As the Spanish cops arrested a Spanish national, they suspected him to be linked to al-Qaeda terrorist group which is fighting in Syria. The Daily Best US press has mentioned that a dangerous double game by Saudi regime through sending terrorists to Syria and reassuring the West about fighting terrorism.
Saudi regime increases its overt and clear support for the radical Islamic groups and al-Qaeda branches in Syria. Jamie Demeter, writer of the article that talks about the Saudi jihad in Syria from US intelligence sources, said that tens of Saudi terrorists were allowed to travel from Riyadh without any obstacles, as some of them were freed from jails, whereas Franklin Lump from the Counterpunch magazine has pointed out at increasing crimes committed against citizens in areas occupied by what is called the Islamic State in Iraq and Sham, stressing on the huge restrictions imposed on women there. The Russian analyst Vladimir Alexiev, in his article Why Does Not Saudi Arabia Want Stability in the Gulf, stressed that the Saudi governors during these circumstances think only about securing their soldiers, without seeking stability in the region, while the intelligence analysts in the West recommended that the Syrian army should remain steadfast and strong.
In a statement, the Iraqi Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki has called upon the locals of Fallujah to repel the terrorists from their city and to keep it away from a possible offensive and the ensuing dire consequences of armed confrontations. In relevant context, Iraqi political powers have called for filing a case to the United Nations against Saudi Arabia for supporting and funding terrorism in Iraq. Media and intelligence reports have indicated that Saudi Arabia was involved in the crimes and terrorist attacks perpetrated in Iraq recently, which resulted in destroying Iraq's infrastructure and claiming the lives of thousands of Iraqis. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, www.syriaonline.sy. Now to the latest in business and market news with Vani Konjian, but after a short break.
The General Director of Cement Company in Tartus province said that the total values of cement paid last year amounted to 9.5 billion Syrian pounds, while the total quantities of the sold and produced cement amounted to nearly 2 million tons. He pointed out that despite the great difficulties due to the current crisis and the decrease of production, the company made profits through reducing expenditure. Director of the General Establishment of Sugar said that the company has concluded a contract to buy 25,000 tons of unprocessed sugar to be processed in the two companies of sugar in El Ghab and Homs province. He added that the quantities of the processed white sugar would be distributed among the citizens. Director of the Cooperative Agricultural Bank in Mhardeh town in Hama province said that the bank has started to pay about 148 million Syrian pounds as a price for the cotton crops produced by the farmers and sent to the ginneries of the province. For his part, Director of the Agricultural Bank in Selhab said that the bank has also started to pay about 133 million Syrian pounds as a price of the cotton produced by the farmers for the season with no difficulties whatsoever. Noteworthy is that the two agricultural banks in Mhardeh and Selhab have taken some measures to facilitate the payment of the prices of the strategic crops, on the top of which is cotton. Director of the Syrian Arab Standards and Metrology Organization said that it was seeking to adopt a national system of standards and metrology in line with the international standards to cope with the scientific development in this domain, with the aim to adopt standards that would enable the national products and goods to compete in the Arab and international markets. He added that the organization was cooperating with other international standards and metrology organizations and that it prepared executive programs for two memorandums in the domain of standardizing and metrology. He concluded by saying that the organization issued 53 certificates in various domains last year. And now over to some main currencies exchange rates according to the bulletin of the Central Bank of Syria. Thank you for watching us and Merry Christmas.